I have an Iceomatic ice machine that keeps freezing up. So first thing I'm going to do is take the front panel off here. Let's take a look at what's going on. So customer said every couple weeks they're having to defrost the unit. You can see we have a complete freeze up situation here. Frozen solid. So I'm just going to hit fast forward here. Let's get this guy defrosted. Easiest way is just get some hot water, dump it in from the top. Okay, make sure, and I'm just going to check this evaporator coil. It's pretty dirty here, so we'll get that cleaned out nicely. Make sure you're disconnecting power before you start dumping water into the top of the unit. All the controls are on the left hand side there, and we got our bin switch on the right hand side, and we don't want to short anything out. So I'm going to use the hottest water possible. And we'll just keep dumping from the top until I can get this curtain off. Alright, so it's good enough to get the curtain off. Watch that bin switch. It doesn't take much to bend it, get it, and to damage it. So just keep an eye out for that. Alright, so we're just going to peel the ice off of the coil here. And you can see the sides of the coil are still frozen up. So I'll go ahead and dump some more water in here. And I can already see what the issue is. But let's continue going through the troubleshooting. There's an obvious hint right now of why the freeze up's happening, but that's okay. So I got everything defrosted. Let's go ahead and throw this curtain back on. And like I said, be careful with this switch on the side here, that bin switch. It doesn't take much to damage it. So yeah, I'm just going to pop the left hand side on first, and then we're going to go over the switch and behind it, and then just drop in the curtain. And just, yeah, be mindful of that switch. We're all good, it's not damaged. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and clean this coil. This coil is a little bit of a pain to clean, this condenser coil. So I sprayed the back of it with some Viper spray as best as I could. And then now I'm going to spray the front of it as best as I can as well. The angles are just terrible on this. So I'm going to end up flushing this with water and nitrogen just because the foam's not going to do everything I need it to do, but it's going to get the majority of the gunk out of there. And yeah, you can see I'm kind of struggling here, especially it's cold outside, so this can's kind of frozen. So when you put the can upside down, it does not want to spray, but I did put some hot water on it in the sink. But yeah, using these Viper spray cans in the wintertime always kind of sucks. But whatever, nothing we can do. Try to heat them up as best as you can with some hot water. And it's really hard to get behind that fan. I mean, you can probably take that fan out and you'll get a bit more access. But because I'm going to flush it with water and nitrogen, I don't really feel that I need to do that. And I'm from the back side. I sprayed it pretty good, so I'll cover as much as I can here, and then we'll shine the light through at the end just to make sure we did get everything. If not, we'll spray it a second time. Alright, so I'm getting ready to just flush it with some water, so I'm just going to put some paper towel down to soak as much water as I can here. And we're just going to go ahead, spray everything as best as we can. Left hand side's pretty easy to access, that right hand side not so much. But that's when our nitrogen is going to come into play and make our life really easy. And I'm just going to spray the back side of the coil now. Get as much as we can out of there. Alright, so everything's all flushed out now. So I'm going to move on to the nitrogen. I'll set it around about 75 to 100 pounds. Don't got to go too crazy on this one. It's pretty clean already. Just those couple areas I couldn't get, I just want to be sure that this coil's really clean. And sorry, the footage here isn't really the best. It was hard for me to hold the camera. It's just strapped to my head there, so I was kind of assuming that I was getting a good angle, but you guys get the point here. So blow everything out. Alright, so now I'm going to test my dump valve. So you can see my magnetic fuel detector is not picking anything up. So I'm just going to do a voltage check with my meter. And we do have voltage there. So that thing's completely dead, that dump valve. So there's our first issue. We're not bringing in fresh water at the start of a cycle. That's definitely an issue. And we're going to make a batch of ice now. We're going to time it. Alright, so I'm just going to pull up the troubleshooting tree for ice does not release from the evaporator. So there's really two main reasons why it's going to happen on this specific machine. So the first thing is the ice bridge correct. So basically this one uses a pressure switch. So are we even going into harvest? Okay. So first thing we want to check is, are we going to harvest? If we're not going to, I'm looking at that pressure switch to see why we're not going to harvest. Okay. Now if we are going to harvest, is the machine level? We're past that point. Is water running over the evaporator during harvest? So we can kind of skip this step, clean the evaporator. Now the one I'm mostly concerned with here is check the harvest assist. So unlike Manitowoc and Hoshizaki, they actually have a pin that pushes the ice off the coil. So if that pin's not moving the ice off the coil, I'm going to go look at that. That's usually the cause of why we get freeze-ups. Is this harvest assist pin is just not pushing ice off of the coil. Alright, so we're at 18 minutes, 13 seconds. We have finally gone into a harvest. So I kind of cut a minute and a half here out of it just because it was kind of boring. But watch this harvest assist pin. Look at what it's doing. Right here, see it's stuttering back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's really struggling to push ice off of this coil. Okay, so we finally got it to push ice off the coil. But man, that thing was really struggling. So that harvest assist is definitely damaged. And we're going to finally drop some ice here. And we're going to see how long our harvest took. So we're 18 minutes, 13 seconds. And we're at... So we're just over 2 minutes. That's a little bit long for this harvest. Right, so as we can see, the harvest assist was working, but not working correctly. So that harvest assist is damaged. But now I'm concerned as why the reason why it is damaged. So we're just going to keep going through our troubleshooting tree. Check suction pressure during harvest. Okay, so I know the coil's getting hot enough. We could have put gauges on. But the real reason here, the root cause of everything, evaporator may be defective. Okay. And as we can see from the pictures, that nickel coating came off. So that ice literally can't slide off of that coil. It's trying hard. The harvest assist is trying to, but you can see it's kicking back and forth, back and forth. It just can't slide off of that coil if that nickel coating comes off. Alright, so as I said earlier in the video, there's some hints towards I knew what the issue is. You can literally see the copper on this coil. The nickel coating has come off. The whole bottom row, it's stripped right off. Okay, the ice cannot slide off of here. That's why that harvest assist started stuttering. So the harvest assist is damaged now. And you can see the coating's gone from the bottom row. And if you slowly come up to the other rows, it's starting to peel off of there. So that's a pretty good indicator that this is why our freeze-up's happening. And that's why we cannot complete our harvest cycle. Alright, so as we can see, we had a bunch of different issues there. So the first one was that dump valve, which seems to be a common issue on these older ICE series. They're seeing a lot of these issues. You've seen them in the last couple videos that I've made. So what happens when the dump valve fails? We're not bringing in fresh water during that harvest. So we're not getting fresh water at the start of every cycle. And we're kind of reusing that same water over and over and over. And we're not dumping the trough out completely. So a lot of sediments collecting at the bottom of that trough, which is obviously a big issue because we're just recircling that over the coil and it's just breaking down the coil. Okay, the second issue was that harvest assist. You really have to pay attention in the video there. I couldn't get the greatest shot of it, but you could see it was stuttering. Okay, so that harvest assist is now damaged. But the big issue and the main cause why everything happened was that nickel coating came off of the coil. So there's a couple hints the customer had given me. They said they're getting some black flakes in the ice. So that's usually because the machine's dirty, but generally not. It's because the coating has come off. And as soon as I pulled that ice off the coil and defrosted everything, it was a dead giveaway. I could see the copper. I know that coil's done. Now, this is only the second or third time I've seen that on these Iceomatic machines. It's not really a common issue. I think this was like a 2012 model. So let's say 8-9 years old this machine is. And who knows how long that dump valve had failed for and how long we were just bringing dirty and contaminated water over that coil.